Last week, I promised that we will talk this week about things that are very frequent in situations that I'm facing with my clients as a leadership development coach. And those topics show, I think, a certain trend when you see a few people a day, and they are of all walk of life, and really work today in some organizations where they need to navigate the system and be challenged by the system. But before I start that, I want to start by asking you to subscribe on YouTube, by also use different channels of social media where we are showing live this event, and it's also recording and also podcast on Spotify and all the channels like LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and others. And I just would like to invite you to do so because you are, I think, all over the world, majorly in the US, but but some of you are really in the other four continents. And it's always a pleasure to get feedback from you. So please, if it's one you are seeing this show, to give a feedback on the chat. This is LinkedIn usually that gives you this possibility. I do not have the ability to respond to your chat live, but I can say it myself here or later. You can also use the website www.andrepulitzer.com, where I'm expecting to have some novelties coming up very soon. And to end this year, I think one thing I wanted to talk about was positivity or negativity, for the opposite of it. Because there is toxicity in many, many settings and instances. Since I saw even companies where things are coming back when I coach one or another person working for the same company and being an executive or a manager and having a bit of the common denominator of being the one who is new to the position. That's when the story, I start really right away with the story, new to the position. And that position was desired by someone of the team that this person is inheriting from. So let's make first a distinction. When you are new to a position and you can build your team, obviously it's an ideal situation. It's much better than inheriting. Inheriting means or you replace someone, or that position was created for you, but a team has been given for you, to you, sorry, or partially. But the people who have been around for longer than you, because you're new to the company, that's also another case. You're new to the position, but you've been in the company for longer or for less than your team members. And then you've got the person who is joining the company, who is brand new to the company, and then is now managing, or she is managing, a group of people that have been much longer because they've been around for a while. And now, when you're replacing something, it's another challenge. Someone, it's another challenge, obviously. So think of those three dimensions I'm sharing with you, especially the ones of inheriting a team. That's number one. Number two, having one team member that in fact was expecting to be promoted and have your position. That comes up very often. And then how to handle all of that, because it's going to show at one point and in different situations recently, and especially again with a couple of companies in some industries where I saw several times the same pattern happening. Someone brings toxicity to the team because that person is jealous or wants to make it difficult for that new manager. How that person does it, it's all kind of behaviors and attitudes that are definitely visible, tangible, and additionally, not only that person makes it difficult for the manager or the executive I'm coaching, but makes it difficult for the team members. Sometimes they don't realize it, and it's just coming up as things build up with the toxicity. That person is kind of contagious, is really saying things negatively, brings always an attitude to meetings, and constantly challenges the manager by pushing back, by making comments, by saying things that are really mean, and sometimes one-on-one with the manager, be completely confrontational and make those conversations very difficult. right from the bat, from the beginning of the relationship, when the manager comes in. That's the first question I ask you. What do you do? What do you set? Because you set the stage for your leadership. You set the stage for how you want people to perceive you. I always insist in this, to be intentional in the way you are impacting people and influencing them. How do you come across? Are you an open-minded kind of leader? Are you a servant leader, meaning that you are really there to support your team members? In the beginning, even you come with these kind of messages, obviously you're not trusted yet. You didn't prove anything. Secondly, it's if you make a statement about it, and nothing happened until you made the statement, that makes it maybe a promise, something we can expect, and it's in the air, but it is not something proven. It's not factual. So I personally don't want to give an advice, but I think that from the facts that I see, it's not a good thing to make statements and declarations of your intentions other than being very professional and being very confident about you. Because a leader or a manager showcasing self-confidence with the measures of being humble but still very confident and solidly planted on the floor, right, to the ground. You're planted in your position. You've been the one hired for the position, selected for it. You may be one over, I don't know how many candidates, and the hiring manager selected you. I always want my clients to remember that day when they've been selected, because that keeps them really connected to the trigger, to the reason why they are the right person for the job. So those imposter syndromes that many people have are vulnerability signs that people who are negative are going to detect right away and take advantage of. It's psychology, it's human. Nothing is wrong about it in a way. What's wrong is to bring negativity. That's wrong. And that's what I'm trying to address today, about how you can set the stage to be immune from having these kind of things happening. Now, there is no magic formula, right? No magic formula, but definitely a behavior and a position, a posture. With I insist so much in this intentional posture, so that you are coming across the way you want. The way you want. That's your choice, right? The way you come across. And you can have a smile on your face, but you need to be confident. How can you inspire trust if you're not confident about yourself and you being in the position that you are? So, those who bring negativity, toxicity into your team, and in the context I described, someone who wanted your position, for example, and sometimes also it comes up when you are collaborating, you work with a team, and your peers are your peers and collaborators, your associates. And then all of a sudden, you're the one that has been designated to be promoted. Now you're going to manage your peers. Totally, totally classic, happens all the time, but it sets the stage for potential conflicts, frictions, jealousy, and this kind of things happening where people come with negativity. So we have to recognize the signs. The managers, the leaders, in their personality traits, and when you do your personality tests or self evaluation or assessments, you see sometimes who you are. An MBTI will tell you that you're an STP, or you are someone who is extroverted. You are someone who is sensing things, who is perceiving, and et cetera, et cetera. These personality traits are very good in your position. But what are the personality traits of your team members? And are they compatible? There's other tests, other assessments that a good leader, in fact, encourages to have, so that he or she can create an harmony in the team. That takes time anyway. So um, I really think that what is beautiful in the setting that you are deciding to have is that you are somehow controlling the climate of your meetings and of your interactions. So again, you need to recognize the signs. and they can really be very substantial. You can really sense negativity. You can really recognize a toxic behavior. Gossip is one of them. And be very firm in how you are handling this and how you take these kind of values. I always say, right from the beginning of my relationship with someone individually and collectively, I can share my values and I can say, if someone behaves in the wrong way in a meeting, take that person apart. And if it's virtual, create a breakout room, right, on Zoom or on Teams, take that person eye to eye and really confront that person in a very direct way and say, you know what you did? Can you tell me what could have been wrong in this meeting in the way you behaved? That person is going to be honest or not, but you can make then it opens the opportunity to express your opinion, but to express especially what you saw. And even if the person doesn't have a goodwill and will reject what you're saying, you can always share your values and say, look, you passed the red line. I have one expectation, and more than that, it's really a paramount rule and policy is that I reject negativity in my team. If I see anyone bringing toxicity in my team, that means that I don't give you a second chance. I warn you. This is clear that I'm not going to accept that in the team. My team members don't appreciate it. Even they might not realize it right away, but I'm going to tell you that they are not appreciating it. So if I see a second time that this is showing up, you can stay in your office, you can go back home, but it is totally tolerant, zero tolerance. Now, when you say this kind of thing, it's a boundary you're setting that is recognized by them. There is no question that if you say it clearly and directly, like I say, of course, I'm not prescriptive. You can say it the way you want. You can make it at the time when it's really more appropriate, maybe in another natural organic event or instance, which is, well, we were supposed to meet. It's our weekly one-on-one. Now I take the time to tell you what happened. Do you recognize it? And you don't recognize, if even you don't recognize it, this is what I saw. And because I saw, I share what is my zero tolerance boundary. Okay? So I hope this is clear. There's people who are not firm enough because they doubt on themselves, because they have this imposter syndrome, because they are still new to the organization. So they give the whole space to people to behave the way they want. No, you bring yourself as the leader already, right from the beginning. That doesn't mean you have to be, again, pompous and pretentious and behave as the new boss around the corner who's going to really be with a stick and punish you. It's just that you have values and you can set the stage and you can set the boundaries and you can set that right from the beginning. Clarity and clarity of communication, efficient communication is key to very good leadership and to people and for people to feel safe. You are really creating a safe place when you are clear about what you want and where you are clear about yourself, that you are confident you're the right person in the position that you have. Don't forget, if you need even your memory to remember why you've been selected, that you have been selected for the position, then remember that. Go to the details of this day when you were on your final interview and you were receiving an offer letter a week or two later or the following day. Okay? Please remember those things. The second thing is the leadership impact that you have. That comes from understanding how rejecting negativity, enhance your leadership impact, your image. They start recognizing you for who you are, rejecting negativity. And obviously, leading by example, by model, by being a positive mindset, by bringing always a positive mindset and inviting people to do the same. There is nothing I know with a growth mindset and in a company that is growing, that is hiring you for development, for growth, or for other reasons, for research, for everything that you bring as a leader to the organization, even if it's a complex organization or a complex situation, is always giving you the possibility. You always have this opportunity, right, to set the stage, show yourself authentically, and creating those boundaries. Then there is the real life scenario when it becomes difficult, when things were not very visible, they just built up a little bit. You were not even very clear about perceiving that negativity. It just comes back. When you come home, you feel, something was wrong in the room. I didn't feel comfortable with this person. Why is this person is always making me uncomfortable? And then you kind of, sometimes also from feedback of the other team members. But the strategy here, and it's really a resilience, you need to be very consistent in what your expectation is of what you want the team to be. And the stories that I tell you, a story that told you, is very real. I had couple of things happening. The worst case scenario was this individual who was a new manager of a large team, very talented person, but very vulnerable in many senses. Family problems, challenges at home, coming at the workplace sometimes really down and depressed, whatever. But that person was not sure of himself. It was a he. And and he had a very toxic person in the team. That toxic person was in the company for a long time. Politically, this person could maneuver and leverage things, make people think this way or that way, be influential, even with negativity. That's the worst case scenario. Because what happened is, just to show something shortcut, this person got kicked out. The manager, I'm saying. He was there for 3 months or 4 months. And I coached him for about 2 months until he got unfortunately fired. Fired because she was bringing all kind of issues, and he was not well supported by his boss. So having a weak boss, right? Being the one that this boss hired for the position, and then having the illusion that the boss gave you that you were supported but were not. And this boss listen to this, and this boss allowing people to come to him to complain about him, their boss. So he opens the door for people to come and gossip about their boss who is reporting to him. He opens the door to that. Then he's listening to them. Then they come back and they can say to each other or to even their boss, we saw your boss and we told him and this and that. Then what happened between the boss and my client was not very, uh, nice and dandy when they had conversations about these issues that were brought up over there. How objective they were, how true they were, doesn't really matter. The fact that the boss was opening his door to that was really another sign of real, how can I say it, danger that this vulnerability of this person would pay the price at one point, because all this negativity, he allowed it. He wanted to come across as a very open-minded, as the space was all open for people to do whatever they wanted. He didn't set any boundaries, not at all. Even in the coaching, when I was dictating, not dictating, excuse me, forgive me, I am thirsty, but what I'm trying to say here, and I think you understand me, is that the coaching here was about his posture, his behavior, and how to react to it and be firm about his expectations and firm about his values. But for some reason, he couldn't bring it. This person was too offensive, too political, too established in the company, and she wanted his job. And she never got this job, by the way, after he left. But this was a terrible situation. And what again made me myself emotional about, even the coach should be completely external, but it was so giantly big and gross, was the attitude of the boss. This is really something that I think was also the trigger for things to explode and become the worst case scenario that I've seen. All the other scenarios that I'm seeing is that those managers build up their presence and build up their impact, and with the coaching, reinforce the boundaries all the time, remind those boundaries all the time, and face those people who are creating this negativity and this toxicity eye to eye in a very direct style of communication so that things come across. I think that this is really what I wanted to bring up here, because you might recognize things that really talks to you because they are similar, right? Zig Ziglar, for example, said that your attitude, not your aptitude, will determine your altitude. I love this sentence. I love this quote. That's why I just say it to you, because your altitude, is really reached out when your values are of course extremely well thought and very integrated, internalized in yourself. And that's what you demonstrate as a leader all the time. And those values are very precious to the people that work with you. And all the other part of the professional relationships and the expectation that you express clearly, and all the working relationship and interactions that happen on a day-to-day basis, demonstrate that positivity and that growth mindset that you have. So whoever would be a contrast to that will be opposing, in fact, everybody else, and will be rejected automatically. That's what I think is one of the best style and the best action you can have as a leader when something like this shows up. Now, toxicity can happen in the middle of a negotiation. I don't want to also be only on the leadership side of things. Leadership is also how you perform your negotiations. In a negotiation, someone who's going to yell, someone who's going to bring false arguments, is going to try to lie, or anything of that sort in a negotiation, is can be addressed also directly or indirectly. Can also cause you to bring someone outside the room, again, virtually or physically, and address the person directly, and again, share your values and your boundaries. Negotiations have to be decent. It's not about, you know, being offensive, attacking, or having a war. It's about having a conversation that could be based on a win-win kind of mindset, a growth mindset. And the negotiation is to reach an agreement. It's not to create a conflict. So negativity, toxicity has to be outside the room. And now we can talk about this in any other kind of setting. You know that I'm also a mediator, and in mediation, a lot of negativity come in the room because people are getting divorced, because associates get separating, and they want to have a memorandum of understanding describing terms of an agreement, and they are going to negotiate along the mediation. And I'm having this neutral position to try to make the voice of each one speak their desire, their expectations, their goals, and then start to see what is common between the two, or where they can meet and reach an agreement. They never walk away from a mediation table as winners, but they come out of this mediation table after 1, 2, 3, or 4 sessions. I'm talking about a divorce, for example, with an understanding that, in fact, they have a fair deal because they had this conversation at that mediation. My goal is to really make sure that they hear each other, that they do not send negative signs if they can, and if they can't, to contain it, and then prioritize the agreement and the outcome of the conversation and the mediation. That's really what I have in mind. And when I have that in mind, I structure the meeting that way, and everything comes out that way, even in the worst case scenario, in the worst kind, what we call high conflict scenario, when two people decide to separate and needs terms of separation, to do this out of a courtroom without an attorney and without all these high cost situations. We can definitely do this at the mediation table. There's one contingency though. That's why the negativity is usually contained, is that both sides want a mediation. It's a volunteer act and prerogative. They have a proactive presence of willing to mediate. And when that happens, the mediation happens okay. If one is imposing it on someone else, or comes to the mediation table without a good understanding of what mediation is about, this is why I take a lot of precautions and this and you know and explanation, introductions, and non-disclaimer, so that they can come with clarity. to this conversation, this type of format of a conversation. But it's one of the reasons why I also went to mediation, uh, training and certification, and it was in the divorce more than any other kind of conflict. But I do, small court conflict and other kind of business conflicts and teams conflicts to to push the mediation and the coaching inside it, because this is what helps me a lot in the coaching, to coach people who have conflicts. And coaching brings me into mediation to also coach people in terms of reaching an agreement and listen to the other side, because that's the most of, I think, the obstacle I have in mediation. They're not listening to each other. I bring this because this is the place where I can expect toxicity and negativity to come. So not only I have to set the boundaries, do the disclaimers and all of that, but it's a constant effort I have to make to push back when negativity comes up and bring back that person to a constructive mindset, that we need to settle, that we need to come to an agreement. So the same happens again in the work environment and for those leaders who are facing this obstacle. So I invite you to think about this. I invite you to try it, to experience it when you see this coming, prioritizing your senses, the fact that you can detect, you can really recognize visibly an attitude, a behavior that comes up as negative, as toxic for the group, and that you have to set the boundaries and reject that 100%, and have a zero tolerance for people to bring this in the room. There's people who are very sensing the vibes in a room. Negativity is very, very tangible. And that's why I'm inviting you to try to look for this type of feelings, because when you are experiencing that feeling, then you become very used to it, and you can use a lot of agility to contain it and reject it. So another resource I would like, one resource I would like to propose to you, that I'm very much about resources, is a book. It's called the No Complaining Rule: Positive Ways to Deal with Negativity at Work. John Gordon is the author of that. This book really offers practical strategies to creating a positive workplace and to counter negativity. So again, the book is the No Complaining Rule: Positive Ways to Deal with Negativity at Work. It's a long title, by John Gordon. It's an excellent book. And there is many books about negativity and conflict, but this is one that I recommend. Okay, so again, come back to me whenever you can. Thank you for Eitan to make a comment over there to say hello. He's an old friend of mine, and it's nice to have sometimes people coming up, showing up, as I haven't seen them for years, and they see the show coming up. So it's great. Thank you, Eitan, and I wish you also the best. And I wish all of you the best to handle negativity, to be on top, and not let it come over you. Thank you, and see you next week. Bye.